for supporting the Fable and Folly Network. Here's another show we know you'll love.
Got you.
Herb?
The Adventures of Bud and Herb.
It's back, and it brought friends.
An immersive audio fiction, actual play hybrid where cozy mystery collides with creeping horror.
The pee-pee just froze inside my body, Herb. That ain't natural, man.
Amateur cryptid hunters.
Donnie, the locked-on-ill monster. Wouldn't it be amazing if we actually saw him?
Professional bad decision makers.
There's gonna be a lot of puke all over the place any second now.
Not the ones you want,
To be honest, we weren't sure if anybody was listening.
but the ones you deserve on the case.
Y'all do know this is an investigative funcast, right?
And a living world powered by Daggerheart RPG.
It's such a good story. It flames, seriously.
From Cinderwood Studios and Fable and Folly. Listen anywhere you get your podcasts or watch on YouTube.
Hunger.
Modes of Thought in Anterran Literature. Second Year Classics, Harbridge University. Okay, hi. I'm continuing the reading of Binder of Sorrows text. We're on column 3 now. I decided to come up to the lake house because, classes are still suspended. And since it kind of feels like the world is falling apart, I thought maybe I'd get out of Dodge. But, anyway, it's nice to be up here. Anyway, if you haven't seen me around campus, that's why I'm not keeping office hours right now. But as usual, you can email me through the usual channels if you have questions. In column 3, a couple of things came up that I thought were interesting thesis topics. So I'd take a look at some of the things that we're discussing here. There might be some interesting ideas for your thesis. Okay, let's just get into it. Column 3, the first rising of Vokara. This is as inscribed on the 3rd column of the inner sanctum wall, Reed Coast Temple, translation and marginalia by the University of Beijing, Department of Antiquities, restricted edition. Don't tell anyone I'm reading this. And there's a note here, glyph spacing widens progressively toward the center of the column. Stroke depth increases around all references to Vokara. Several vertical scoring marks suggest the carvers paused repeatedly during inscription, possibly to realign text with ritual pacing. So this comes back to an element of what you can't see because we don't have images, but the carvings themselves influence the interpretation of the language that they represent. So the act of carving in Anterra, we know this was a ritual obsession of this culture because there's carving on practically every stone surface in Prime A, in Dark City, and also in Prime B. So this culture was addicted to writing stuff on walls and carving it there in a way, that is incredibly permanent, which we're lucky and grateful for. But also is an interesting aspect of the culture that we keep running into. This is comparable to me, I think of the Western tradition of monks in the Dark Ages hand copying these illustrated manuscripts. If you've looked at stuff like the Book of Kells, etc., so on. I mean, these are beautiful, and the act of writing is part of the artistic statement as much as the words. Very much the same thing is true with the calligraphic traditions in Asian cultures, right? There's a reason why people practice calligraphy to this day, with a sort of quest for the most profound way of writing a character and putting forth a sentiment in written language. That is one of those thesis topics I was talking about. So somebody jump on that because it's a good one. Okay, now we'll get into column 3, the first rising of Vokara. Part 1, the sea opens. On the 9th night, or what the crew called the 9th night, though no measure held, when the water breathed like a sleeping god, when no gull circled, when the moon hung without a face, the sea trembled. It was not a wave, it was not a wind. It was not even movement. Something beneath the world shifted its weight, and the surface remembered. The current slowed, then stilled, not calmed, stilled. The boat did not rock, the ropes did not creak. The sailors' chests rose and fell, but the air made no sound entering them. Kahlo reached for his net. It did not move. Heron tried to speak. Her tongue struck her teeth, but no word followed. One of the unnamed struck the hull with his palm to hear it answer, but it did not. Then the sea opened, not with violence, not with force, but with permission. What rose first was wind and light, not bright, but black light, a gleam like a wet bone in deep caves, a sheen like oil spread over memory. It came not from above, but from beneath the keel. It climbed the sides of the boat without touching them. It filled the spaces between their 9 fingers. It settled in the hollows of their throats. A disk of black removed itself from the ocean before them, 9 lengths by 9 lengths. Quick aside here, not to disrupt the flow, but the translation of the word lengths is ropes. So they used the term rope to delineate a specific length, like Noah's Ark and the cubits, however many cubits that's supposed to be. So it's a seafaring culture. They had this sort of predetermined length of a rope, and you would need a rope of 20 ropes length for X purpose. But it does speak to the fact that this culture had a system of measuring length and probably weight. At what point does a culture adopt various systems of measuring their physical world? Ding ding, another thesis topic. Okay. A disk of black removed itself from the ocean before them, 9 lengths by 9 lengths. And then a sound, not heard, but known. The The sound of a mother who mourns not her child, but her child's absence from memory. The voice said nothing. It only wept. The wind withdrew, the stars folded inward like insects retreating into bark. The men could no longer hear their own breath. There was no sound but the sea inhaling its own silence. And from this hush rose Vokara. Part 2. The full shape of the binder. He rose upright, as though the sea itself remembered its spine. He had no feet. His lower half coiled and uncoiled like rope drawn from darkness, wet and endless. He had no eyes, but where his attention fell, the water curdled, thickening, tightening, as if preparing to hold something. His mouth was not a mouth, but a lattice of bone or sharp coral, interlocked and shifting, opening without widening. His hands were nets, not held, grown, woven from hair, rib cages, and the long white cords of tendon of all the sailors who had ever drowned. They moved when he moved, but also when he did not. Within his chest, through whalebone ribs, there were shadows, people, faces turned upward, mouths still moving, not screaming, speaking, each word caught before it could be finished. Held. Above his head hovered a disk, foam and teeth spinning slowly as if grinding something unseen into measure. He did not arrive. He was already there once he was seen. I mean, this is a terrifying image of a powerful, powerful god, Vokara. There's an annotation here from Beijing. The disk of foam and teeth hovering above Vokara's form is iconographically unique in Anterran mythology. While reminiscent of a halo in the Western tradition, Professor suggests this may symbolize a divine adjudication mechanism, a form of continuous evaluation or division, which is non-corresponding to the indication of purity or divine power implied by the Western halo. It is possibly analogous to the judging rings seen in funerary steles from the Eastern Shoal sites H9 through 15. Notably, no other Anterran deity is depicted with an externalized cognitive structure. So, Vokara's disc, this disc of foam and teeth that floats above him, Professor Wan here is saying that this is some sort of radar that is constantly evaluating what's in front of him. Again, he has no eyes, so perhaps this is the eye of Vokara, but it is tuned not to light, but to what? Well, probably to burden, to empathy, and to the sort of what we've been calling this economy of sorrow, this ability to burden share or deploy and assign grief, shame, sorrow and pain. I have to look at the judging rings in the funerary seals from the Eastern Shoal sites because I haven't gotten my hands on those images or the documentation yet. So if I can get through to Beijing, I will, but nobody's answering the phone over there right now. I know it's a hard time for all of us with what's going on. I think it's really sad. I don't know what's happening with Taiwan, and the constant internet blackouts just make it impossible to know what's happening in that part of the world right now. Let's hope things get back to normal soon. And for those of you who are in that part of the world, I hope you're okay. I hope you're well. Okay, let's get back to work here. Part 3, the speaking of Vokara. When he spoke, the lattice did not move. The sound entered them as pressure. I am called binder. The word did not echo. It held. I am the mouth at the bottom of mourning. To be clear, that is mourning with a U. So mourning as in paying respects to the dead. I am the mouth at the bottom of mourning. Kahlo fell to his knees. Not from fear, from recognition. I am Vokara, third born of Ikopa, keeper of the fifth name. At this, the water beneath the boat tightened further as if bracing. You seek the rain feast, where the fruit bleeds sweetness, where the clouds bow to the thirsty, where the sand forgives. The disk above him turned once, slow. But the waters know your breath. Heron pressed her Heron pressed her hands to her ears. It did not lessen the sound. No keel may pass without a binding. Part 4, the price of passage. Part 4, the price of passage. Right, every hero's journey like this requires payment, cost. It's amazing to me that particular formula, very Joseph Campbell, right, hero's journey, having to bring a gold coin to cross the river Styx. It exists in Anterra 65,000 years before these other stories. Incredible. Part 4, the price of passage. The nets that were his hands shifted, not outward, inward, as if drawing something already given. You will give me the life of one you love. The words did not strike. They entered as if already agreed to. If you do not choose, I will, and I will take 9. One of the unnamed men began to whisper, not words, names, over and over, faster than breath. And if I choose 9, they will die without names, and their memories will be wind. At this, the whispering stopped. Kahlo dropped his net into the boat. It did not coil. It lay as if placed in a grave. He said, "Take me." But the word "me" fractured before it reached the air. Heron closed her eyes tightly as if the world might reset behind them. Remember, that's a reference to Ecopa and the idea that if all of the 999 eyes of Ecopa are closed at once, the world will reset and start over. Heron closed her eyes tightly as if the world might reset behind them. Another of the crew bit his tongue until blood ran down his chin and did not fall. Tahara stood. Part 5. Tahara's Bargain. Tahara stood. She did not tremble. She did not kneel. She did not raise her voice. She said, "You ask for 1 life." The disc above Vokara's head stopped. The lattice widened, not open, but apart. "I ask for binding." Tahara looked not at Vokara, but at the boat. At Kahlo, whose remedies had failed. At Heron, whose hands covered her ears as if she could keep them from hearing. At the unnamed, whose names had begun to loosen inside their mouths. Then Tahara said, "You may take one whom I love, and the boat will empty, and the oars will drift, and the rain feast will remain beyond us." The water tightened around the keel. "Or," she said, "you may leave them to me." Vokara did not move. "I will carry what would have taken them. I will hold what they cannot hold. I will bind the grief before it is named." The disc turned once. Slow. "There is no virtue in silence," Vokara said. Tahara replied, "There is no virtue in grief either, only debt." The word debt settled, heavier, recognized. "I give you the border of myself. Let sorrow pass into me and not through them." The shapes within Vokara's chest turned. Not toward the crew, toward her. "You offer no life. I offer the place where lives are kept." The nets that were his hands slackened. Tahara said, "I carry enough." Vokara answered, "You speak as one who misunderstands ownership." Okay, there's an annotation from Beijing here. The phrase "I carry enough" appears again on a funerary offering tablet recovered from this same temple complex. and it's carved into the base of several load-bearing pillars. Scholars believe this line became a proverb for designated sorrow bearers in later Anterran society. However, Dr. proposes it may not originate from Tahara, but from the stone carvers themselves, suggesting a second layer of authorship embedded within the text. Interesting. Similar to the gargoyles of Notre Dame, which were carved without the architect's approval, and their faces reflected the masons' discontent with their pay and working conditions. The idea here is that this phrase, "I carry enough," became kind of a worker's slogan. And it makes sense, and the sentiment is kind of badass. And again, is why Tahara is such a hero of Anterran literature. Part 5. Where are we at? Yeah, Part 5. The binder's acceptance. The water shuddered once, not outward, through. The shapes within Vokara's chest turned, not toward Tahara, but away. The nets slackened, the disk resumed its turning, but he did not refuse her. His form loosened, not dissolving, unbinding, ribs separating like coral in a tide shift, the lattice folding inward, the coil of his body unwinding into nothing held. Then it will be taken, he said. From where, he did not say. From whom, he did not say. And then there was no trace of him. The sea closed, not like water, like a mouth choosing not to speak. Part 6. The Night Without a Dream. Only the sound of Kahlo's sobbing remained, and even that did not carry far. That night, no one spoke, no one ate, no one slept. Not because they could not, but because there was nowhere to go. Each man, when he closed his eyes, saw something different. One saw a drowned child laid in a coffin made of teeth. One saw the sea peel back to reveal his own face beneath it, weeping. One saw a line of women with their tongues sewn one to the next, passing a single word that never arrived. Heron saw nothing and wept for that. Tahara sat awake. She held a bowl of seawater in both hands. She breathed on it. It did not ripple. Final note from Beijing here, 3F. Tahara's refusal to designate a sacrificial subject marks a significant deviation from all known Anterran ritual structures of the period. Professor interprets this as a transition from externalized sacrifice to internalized burden. Others argue it represents a failure to complete the ritual properly, with consequences deferred rather than avoided. Well, we'll see consequences deferred rather than avoided in later columns of the poem. But what we have just witnessed is a fairly profound, if somewhat subtle, variation on what we think of as the hero sacrifice. In sort of Western traditions, or a lot of mythological traditions, there's this sense of dying and rebirth. That's how you create a hero. They have to sacrifice everything and be reborn. But when they're reborn, they're starting with a blank slate. That's not what Tahara's doing here. Tahara is saying, Vokara demands a sacrifice, someone that I love, and if I don't give them someone that I love, they're going to take 9 of my crew, which would be the end of the mission, and the drought would remain and be a failure. And she finagles a new result by saying, I will carry the grief. I will carry the burden of the death that you demand. And that should be enough. In other words, what you want, Vokara, is the grief of a death of one that I love. I'll give you that. And you can give me all the grief that you want. I will carry it. And at this moment in our story is when we see grief become assignable, deployable, an economical structure of debts and liabilities and surpluses. And that is what informs the entirety of Anterran culture from this point forward. Cool. Okay, well, besides all of that, I would just say there's some really lovely passages in this. I really enjoyed reading this section, and if you have any thoughts, shoot me an email. Let's continue to look at burden sharing and where that goes in the rest of the columns. Hopefully I'll be back on campus next week, but if things don't change, then I might stay up here at the lake. I'm not sure. Either way, you can shoot me an email, and I'll get back to you. Okay. Thanks, guys. Modes of Thought in Anterran Literature. This podcast is made possible by Harvard University, a grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities, the Peeler Prize in Archaeological Literature, and the Harbridge Family Trust, with an in-kind donation and production assistance from Wolf at the Door Studios. For more information and a reading list, please visit modesofthoughtpodcast.com.
Meet Jerry. He may not look like much, but for 36 trillion cells, he's their whole world.
Hello, City of Jerry!
Ken Neuron, Asa Dendrite.
I don't need luck, I was born for this.
Flu vaccine, Quentin Quarantino.
Well, I might just get a little sick tonight.
Allergy pills, Sergeant Benedict Drill.
We have to get down to the lungs, now!
And muscle cell, Tim Glutis.
Hello, boys, it's Timmy!
Keep Jerry safe.
You'll want to be around the new club tonight. The Wet Dream. It's gonna get nasty. Kisses?
Oh, Jerry.
Jerry.
My Jerry!
Oh, Jerry.
Hello, Jerry. Let's get the real party started.
City of Jerry, a microscopic action adventure. Every Friday on Dungeons and Drimbus.